Hello, welcome to Share Your Foodways. My name is Maria Kennedy. I'm the co-director of the New Jersey Folk Festival, and we're really happy to be co-presenting this episode of Share Your Foodways with the Middlesex Art Institute. Here with me today, I have Michelle Washington Wilson, our guest chef, and I also have our student producer from New Jersey Folk Festival, S.J. Waldman. S.J., can you tell us a little bit about the Folk Festival and our guest chef today?
Absolutely. New Jersey Folk Festival is a project with the American Studies Department at Rutgers, and it's where students, faculty, and community board members come together and they present New Jersey folk arts, cultural traditions, and community groups. Michelle here was a presenter at our 2022 festival, and that happens last Saturday in April, and it's free and open to the public on the Cook-Douglas campus of New Brunswick's campus for Rutgers. And Michelle was there to demonstrate and tell stories about the foodways of the Great Migration.
Thanks. We're so happy to have you here, Chef Michelle. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be a chef?
Well, again, my name is Michelle Washington Wilson, and I am a folklorist, a storyteller, and a gourmet chef. I kind of became a chef because I was always interested in food. Both my grandmothers cooked. They both were domestic cooks. And I started cooking at the age of 10 because I came from a family of 5 and I had a lot of responsibilities. My mother worked outside of the home and she depended on me to help out in the kitchen. So fast forward about 36 years, and I had the privilege of attending the Academy of Culinary Arts at Atlantic Cape Community College. It's a 2-year program, and I learned all aspects of cooking. My specialty is actually tableside cuisines, which is preparing food like this right in front of your eyes, like we're going to do today. So what do you say we get started?
All right, let's get started.
All right. The reason why I selected mac and cheese to prepare for you today is because mac and cheese can be a very simple dish. It's something that we can make with items that we receive from the food pantry, like this orzo and this box of cheese. We picked these up at one of our local food pantries, and this is something that with just a few basic items like the pasta, the cheese, and a little milk, a child who's helping his mom around the house or her mom around the house could make this after school and have a good, healthy, nutritious snack. It'll have some dairy and it'll have some good carbs. The other thing about macaroni and cheese is that it is kind of a prestige item as we start to kind of escalate and add more cheeses. And before we sit down to eat today, we will have added at least 5 delicious gourmet cheeses, as well as some seafood. And, well, you know what? I don't want to do a lot of talking. I want to get started. Of course, we've all seen macaroni and cheese that comes in a box, but it's much more creative to make our own, and that's what we're going to do today. I've got some helpers here today. I got my number 1 helper. This is my daughter, Angelicia. We call her Angel. She's my angel pudding. And like me, she started cooking and serving at an early age. So, SJ, what do you say that we get started here? All right.
Woo-hoo.
We're going to get started with this mac and cheese. So we're going to do a basic mac and cheese. I call this the after school special, right?
Favorite.
So we're going to put some water on, and when we're doing pasta, we want to do like at least, we want to add twice as much water as we have pasta. One of the secrets to my mac and cheese is to season the water. Now, I'm not going to add any seasoning to this water because we're going to be using this basic mac and cheese that we get from the food pantry, also known as government cheese.
best.
So we're going to be using this cheese, and this cheese tends to be very, very salty. So we're not going to add any seasonings to the pasta. So could you add 2 cups of water to our 2-quart saucepan in the back? For our after-school special, a rule of thumb is how much cheese, do we really need? I would say 3 fingers for this. 1, 2, 3. So we're going to cut right about here. And this is a kind of sticky cheese. In the old days, people used graters, but I just like to slice it up with a knife. Be careful if you're using sharp knives, because this is something that a mom could make really quick, or a student could make right after school. So it's really sticky cheese. But that's what makes it a great cheese for mac and cheese, because it melts really quickly. So I'm going to line that up like that. And then I'm going to go in, and let's always make sure we know where our fingers are when we're cutting. We don't want to lose them. So there we go. We got some nice cheese, and this is going to be ready to go into our pan once our pasta is cooked, but not overcooked, still a little firm to the bite, what we call al dente. I like to use wooden utensils, not just because it protects my pots and pans, but because metal utensils can actually change the color and the flavor of your food. So I always try to use plastic or wooden utensils when I'm cooking. So after our pasta has come to a boil, we're going to strain it off in a colander. Then we're going to return it back to the pot. We don't need that water. We don't have to rinse it. And once we return it back to the stove, we're going to add about 1/2 cup of milk. We're going to let that milk just come to a simmer, and then we're going to add our cheese. We want to add a little bit at a time because we want to stir it in to make sure that it's well incorporated. You could probably make this dish in about 20 minutes. Our cheese has started to blend. If you turn this off and let it rest, say about 3 minutes, it's going to start to thicken as it cools down. We're going to pour up our after-school special. I can't wait to dig in. So like we said, you could actually just do your pasta, your macaroni, and your cheese for a great mac and cheese. You can have 1 cheese, 3 cheeses, 5 cheeses. Today we're going to be making a very special dish. This is called Stars of the Sea Seafood Mac and Cheese. And these are the stars of the sea. We've got some nice, fresh scallops. We've got some delicious shrimp. These are actually pre-cooked. And we've got some steamed crab legs. I'm using some snow crab legs today. I like their texture and their color. And of course, the big star of the sea that we all love, lobster. We're going to begin by seasoning our water for our pasta. That's a really important step because you don't want to get just a mouthful of plain old pasta, right? So I'm going to season this with Old Bay because we're ultimately going to be making a seafood mac and cheese. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of Old Bay to my boiling water. And we're going to add an elbow macaroni. Now you remember In our first version, we used some orzo, just a pasta we had around the house. And you can actually use any pasta for your mac and cheese, but I like to make it the way my grandmother did with elbow macaroni. So we're going to add our elbow macaroni to our seasoned boiling water. And we're going to stir it to make sure that all of the pasta gets right down in that water and gets blended in. And then we're going to cover our pot. By covering our pot, we keep all of our flavors inside and less steam outside. Keeps the kitchen a little more cool. So while our pasta's cooking, we're going to start working on some cheeses. Now, I like to use at least 3 cheeses. Now, I'll tell you why I use different cheeses. This is a Cooper Sharp. I like a good Cooper Sharp because it's salty and it gives a little bit of kick. Next, I'm going to add a Swiss cheese. Now, I like to put Swiss cheese in my mac and cheese because it gives it that stringy, gooey goodness, you know, when you put that fork in on the plate and, you know, it just looks good and it feels good and it gives you a great mouth feel. So our Swiss is going to go in. So that's all chopped up. And of course, you have to have a really good cheddar. So I like a nice sharp cheddar. And you've probably noticed that all of my cheeses are a creamy white. This is going to be a white seafood mac and cheese. All right, so now we've got some chunks. Now I actually bought out my grater so that I could show you how to grate. If you like to grate your mac and cheese, some people do like to grate their cheese. I don't, but I find it a colossal waste of time. I just cut it in big chunks. But this is how it looks. It has that shredded cheese look. You know, like you can buy it in a bag, or you can do it yourself if you happen to have one of these gadgets. So what I like to do is once my pasta comes to a boil, I actually turn the water off, but I let my pasta sit in the pot so that it absorbs some of that good flavor that we added to the water. So I let it sit until it becomes firm to the bite, not too mushy because we still have to bake it. It's important when we're cooking our seafood that we don't keep it in the temperature danger zone too long, which basically means out of the refrigerator. Food needs to either be kept cold or cooked. So we're going to go ahead with our next step, which is adding our seafood. So I've got a 1-pound block of unsalted butter. I'm going to cut about 2 tablespoons of butter here. I'm going to add it to my pan, and then I'm going to add these delicious fresh scallops. We have to be careful that we remove like our dairy products and keep things separate so that you don't have a problem with cross-contamination. I'm going to slice some of these scallops in half because they're really thick. And some of them I'm cutting lengthwise, and some of them I'm cutting in half right across the top. And some of them I'm going to leave whole, because who doesn't want to find a whole scallop in their mac and cheese? And we're going to slide these right into our hot pan. Now we're going to add our seasoning to our scallops. We're just going to season them lightly, staying with our Old Bay. And we're not going to overcook these scallops. We're going to let them just become a little opaque or a little white. We don't want to overcook them because they're going to go into the oven. While our scallops are cooking, we're going to slide some of these delicious pre-cooked shrimp in so that they get that flavor of that scallop. Even though they're pre-cooked, they're not pre-seasoned. So we're just going to slide some of those into the pan. We're going to hit them with a little bit of Old Bay, just a sprinkle. And then I'm going to turn those off and just let them get acquainted. I'm also going to chop up some of my shrimp, and the key is to have everything about the same size. And you can see that I'm taking the tails off of these, even though I left the tails on the ones that are in the pan. And now I'm going to slide the chopped shrimp right into the pan. And I'm going to give them a little stir so that they get coated with butter and some of that Old Bay seasoning. So as you're cracking your lobster, juicy one. As you're cracking your lobster claws, you want to try to keep that claw intact so you can have some as garnish. Okay, so now we have a nice piece of claw meat that's going to make a lovely garnish. I'm actually going to put that one to the side in a bowl so that when we finish our mac and cheese, we'll be able to put just before we put it in the oven, we'll be able to put those garnishes on top. When I make mac and cheese, I like to make a white sauce. Some people like to just layer their cheeses in. Like my good friend Mr. Bill, he likes to make his mac and cheese with a layer of pasta, a layer of cheese, a layer of butter. I don't do it that way. I make a white sauce and then I mix it in with my macaroni. I find that it blends better. So that's the way we're going to do it today. I'm actually going to make a white sauce. It's called the bechamel. And once we add the cheese to it, it's called the Mornay sauce. All you need to know is if it's delicious or not. We're going to start by adding the butter to our pan, and then we're going to add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter in, and we're going to start with about 1/4 of a cup of flour. You can always add more, but you can't take it out once you put it in there. So I like to add my flour slowly. And I'm just going to stir it right in with that butter. When you're making a roux, you want it to be the consistency of wet sand. It kind of goes with our stars of the sea. So you want to make sure that you keep your roux, which is the flour and the fat. In this instance, it's butter and flour. You want to make it a blonde roux. You want to keep it nice and light. Roux can be a blonde roux, a brown roux, or a dark roux. We're going to have a blonde roux because we're making this white mac and cheese, and we want our roux to stay nice and blonde so that our sauce will be nice and creamy. And now you can see that our roux is thickening, and it's just about ready for us to add our milk. 1 cup of whole milk. And some people like to use evaporated milk. I like to use whole milk. And we're going to let that come to a simmer. We want our sauce to have what we call a nice nappe. That means it's coating the back of the spoon. That's how you know when your sauce is thick enough. So now our white sauce has come to a simmer. We don't really want it to boil because we don't want it to start to separate. And now we're going to start to add our cheeses. I'm going to start with the Cooper Sharp. And I'm going to stir that in. I'm going to add the cheddar. Stir that in. We're going to add the Swiss. Stir that in. So now our sauce, as the cheeses are melting, you can see it's getting pretty thick in there. I'm going to add a little more milk. And I'm going to add some seasonings, a little dry mustard. I'm going to say about a teaspoon of dry mustard, and we're going to add some smoky paprika. I put about a teaspoonful of that, and you can see what that looks like. Now that is going to give a little color to our sauce, but I'm not that concerned about it because it's going to blend in well with the crab legs. I do want to emphasize that when you're cooking, it's important to use the finest ingredients that you can. My mother was not the best cook, but she always bought really good ingredients. And she had her own little specialty purveyor for like everything. She had a fishmonger for her fish. She had a butcher for her meats. And she had great produce markets, just like we have here in this area. So now this sauce is looking pretty good. And what I'm going to do is add about 2 tablespoons of Grey Poupon mustard. That's going to give our macaroni and cheese a nice kick and a nice flavor. So now it's time to taste and adjust. We're going to add just a little pinch of salt to enhance the flavor. Just 2 pinches in our little Victorian salt cellar. We are going to add our cheese sauce to our bowl of cooked pasta. And we always keep a couple of chunks of cheese to the side that we add in as whole pieces. We like to call those a cheesy surprise. We're going to add our seafood in. We've got our shrimp. We've got our scallops. We've got some lobster. We're going to save some for the top for garnish. We're going to get a little bit of that juice in there. to add to our stars of the sea. And now you see we still have our crab meat from our crab legs. We're gonna kind of fold that in at the end because otherwise it's just gonna fall apart. I'm also here with my best friend, Paula Stewart Davis. And you know, macaroni and cheese is a real feel-good food. Paula, what do you remember about mac and cheese from your childhood?
Mommy always made mac and cheese for special occasions, especially on Sunday dinner when we would have the big meal.
Yes.
So we couldn't wait for that. But we never had seafood in ours.
Well, this is, you know, I am a gourmet chef, but so is your mom. And I learned a lot about cooking from Mom May Stewart. As a matter of fact, Mom May is one of the reasons why I wanted to become a chef.
Yeah.
I know you remember when your parents ran the country club, the Sandale Country Club. It was back during the days of segregation, and a lot of people that came out of New York, a lot of African Americans came out to the country in Newtonville, New Jersey, our hometown, and they went to the country club, and the country club had horses. What else did you guys have there?
Swimming pool.
The swimming pool, yeah.
Tennis court.
Golf.
Golf.
Did we say horses?
Yes.
The horses, and the dance patio with the jukebox where you could get 3 songs for a quarter.
Yes.
So I remember the day that I wanted to buy some potato chips and soda. I was at the pool because on Wednesdays, the local kids could come to the pool for 50 cents.
Yes.
So I would pick blackberries for Mrs. Shields and sell them to her for 50 cents, and then I had my money to go to the pool. So one day I said, I had an extra 20 cents and I wanted a soda and a bag of chips. And I went to the back door, and your mom, I don't know how she did it. She ran a country club, she cooked, she cleaned, she prepped all the guest rooms, and she also watched all the children in the neighborhood at the same time.
The original Superwoman.
Yes, that's her. And so, while I was there and I ordered my soda and my chips, a little girl came downstairs and she said, "Oh, I'm hungry. I want my breakfast." So your mom told the little child, "You have to go back upstairs and your mom has to order your breakfast." I had never heard those words put together like that before. Order breakfast? Order breakfast. I had never heard of ordering breakfast. And so I couldn't even get in the pool. I just had to think about it. By the way, can you hand me that seafood off the stove so we can stir that in?
Oh, certainly.
Thank you. Hold that for me. Why don't you tilt it a little bit? We're gonna stir. We're not gonna dump. Okay? All right, there you go. Great. Put that juice in there too. Okay. And so, when I heard about this ordering breakfast thing, I mean, I had never heard of it before. So I decided then and there that I wanted somebody to be able to order breakfast for me. And that's when I decided that when I grew up, somehow people were going to order breakfast for me. And today, I'm a chef, and they can. So thanks for stopping by.
Yes.
And tell Mom May I said hello.
All right. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. And now, I think the star of the sea, mac and cheese, is just about ready to go in the oven. Look at those scallops. Okay, now we're going to put our crab meat in just a little, and we're just going to kind of press that in. We don't want to really break up that crab meat. So we've kind of pressed it in. with the other ingredients. I'm gonna put a little bit more of our mac and cheese on top. Just for those who love to see their cheese, we're going to chop up some pieces to sprinkle across the top. We're going to add some of our crab legs right on top as like a garnish. And those lobster claws, remember them? We're going to put those right there on the top because they are the star. So now, and we need a scallop because what's on top of the dish represents what's inside of the dish. Crab meat on there. Just kind of press that in. We don't want it to look over-handled, but we want it to look good. And now we're going to pop this into our oven, which is already at 350 degrees.
So Chef Michelle, you just made us a beautiful but very rich mac and cheese. And now you are going to make for us something really fresh.
Yes.
Jersey fresh.
Yes. Yes.
And the fruit cocktail is a dish that actually has a special meaning for you. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. Well, you know, when I was growing up, fruit cocktail was like that special dessert. And we really only had fruit cocktail at my godmother's house. My godmother, my godparents, the Petersons, my Aunt Nina, my Uncle Pete, they had an ice cream stand and they made homemade ice cream, and they had the best Sunday dinners, and they also sold Sunday dinner at their stand. And on Sunday evenings after the stand was closed, we would sit and have dinner, and we'd have fruit cocktail for dessert. Now, there was only one maraschino cherry in the fruit cocktail, and it always went to my god sister Jeannie. But the NAACP in Newtonville had a breakfast, and it was a fundraiser. They had it at our church, Bethlehem Baptist Church. And so my mother always wanted me to, you know, be exposed to things. So she bought me a ticket to the breakfast. And as part of the breakfast, there was a fruit cup, and it was a fruit cocktail. And inside of the fruit cocktail was this beautiful, just luscious looking red orb. And I asked Mrs. Evans, who was in charge of the breakfast, I said, "What is that?" And she said, "That is a maraschino cherry." Well, I had never had my very own maraschino cherry before, but I did that day. What I like about fruit cocktails is that you can use the basic one that we're probably familiar with that comes in a can, but today we're going to be adding the very best of Jersey Fresh. So I like to make a good fruit salad with Jersey Fresh ingredients because it reminds me of the day that I learned about maraschino cherries and got my very own as part of my fruit cup. The other thing I like about a good fruit cocktail or fruit cup is that it could be a dessert, or it could be a precursor to the meal, like part of your salad course, or it's good just anytime as a snack.
So Chef Michelle, one of the other ingredients in the fruit cocktail that you're going to make today are the blueberries.
Yes.
And blueberries had a special part in your family story, is that right?
That is so correct. Actually, my grandmother, my mother's mother, her name, people called her Ella, but her name was Montiel Vesta. And actually, I named my catering company after her, and I have the sign. Monte Alvesta, that's right, because I wanted to remember my grandmother's real given name. And so she brought her family to South Jersey because they worked as a family on the blueberry farms. Everybody worked together, they picked together, they put their money together, and they made enough money in the summertime to make it through the wintertime. After about 2 seasons of coming to South Jersey in the summer and then going back to Philadelphia, the family actually relocated. They relocated to Atlantic County, New Jersey, where we continued to pick blueberries in the summertime. And as a young child, that was my first job. At 10 years of age, I still remember the first day I went to the blueberry field and I actually made $3. And I continued to work, and that summer I made enough money to buy a ticket on a bus ride to the World's Fair in New York City, and also buy myself a very beautiful dress. My mom picked it out for me. So yeah, blueberries hold a special meaning in our life and in our story, as does blackberries, because when I mentioned about the Sanddale Country Club and the swimming pool being open to the local kids, the neighborhood kids, on Wednesdays, I used to pick blackberries to raise enough money to get into the pool, which was 50 cents. A lot of money back then. So now we're going to get started with this fruit cocktail, and I'm going to use the canned ingredients as my base because I like the sweetness of the syrup, and I also like that kind of candied flavor that comes from these items that are commercially produced. So let's get busy.
All right.
All right. We're going to start by cutting into this really big garden state cantaloupe. And we're going to use this as the bowl for our All the Best with Jersey Fresh fruit cocktail. So I got this from my good friend Vince Mazzio, and there we go. We've got a cantaloupe crown, and so we're going to take the seeds out. And then we're going to take some of the cantaloupe off the sides, but this is going to become our bowl. And I must say, I cheated a little bit, and I did taste that cantaloupe, and it is so sweet. So now we're going to put together our ingredients, both the fresh and those things that we bought prepackaged. We've got our blackberries, our blueberries, some fresh pineapple, and some pineapple out of the can because I do like that candied flavor. We've got red and green grapes, and we've got some peaches. I actually prefer canned peaches in my fruit cocktail because sometimes fresh peaches can be a little tart. So, and of course, the maraschino cherries. So, we're going to do this real quick. Now, the secret to a really good fruit cocktail or fruit salad is having your ingredients all kind of like the same size. We're going to mix in our blueberries, and this is going to give us some beautiful color, some beautiful texture, and some beautiful flavor. I'm going to add some more of those peaches in and some of that juice. Look at that. It's looking good already. Let's get a little pineapple in there. This is fresh pineapple. Oh, how about some strawberries? Put a couple of those in there for color, for flavor, and for variety. I don't know, did we get any blackberries in there? Let's get some of those in there too. And these are Jersey Fresh. So I don't know where you live, but where I live, we get the best Jersey Fresh produce. It's already looking good. And you can see all of our ingredients in there, our strawberries, our blackberries. And now we have the gilding of the lily. We're gonna add some maraschino cherries. And so now we're ready to sneak a peek of our Jersey Fresh fruit cocktail, made all the best with Jersey Fresh. So, Dr. Maria Kennedy, are you ready to taste our final project?
I don't even know if I can handle it.
All right, well, it's served on a collard, a plate of a collard leaf, a big collard green, because traditionally we would have mac and cheese with collard greens. It was sort of like a special occasion dish, so I've elevated it all the way up to my star of the sea mac and cheese, and here you go.
Oh, this is a work of art, and this is really elevating the whole experience of mac and cheese.
We'll know in a
Let's see.
moment.
That is really, really special. Thank
thank
you
you.
so much, Chef
Thank you.
Michelle.
Thank you.
I'm gonna eat a little more. Chef Michelle, I did have a few more questions for you. So if you don't mind my asking, you had a few stories of your family related to food and food businesses. Could you share a few more of those stories with us?
Well, our family start out very simplistically. When my grandmother, my father's mother, Velma Brown, came up from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, they also came to Philadelphia. And at that time, people didn't have any way to connect with their roots and the food of their culture. I mean, there was no place where you could get, good pig feet or good collard greens or some really good fried chicken. So what my grandmother and her family did, my dad and my Aunt Ivory and my grandmother's husband, who everybody called the old man, what they did was they had a little restaurant, a little cafe on the first floor of their home in North Philly, and it was called the Cozy Nook. And people loved to come by the Cozy Nook and get good smothered pork chops and get some good barbecue. And the old man was known for making the best rolls. He actually worked for the Reading Railroad line as a cook. And my grandmother worked as a domestic cook. When she came to South Jersey, she worked for many of the families in Vineland, New Jersey. And so she had to learn to cook the foods that the European families liked. So, and of course, what they cooked, we ate too. So we had things like fish and chips or mackerel or gefilte fish or, bagels with fresh salmon, and, other people's foodways became our foodways as well. And so now we're just like this fruit salad. We've blended together and we're all one big New Jersey family, sharing our foodways.
So having food businesses has really been a part of your family for generations now.
Yes.
Do you think it'll continue?
I think so. My daughter, who you met earlier, Angel, spent 5 years in New Orleans. She worked as a server, and service is important. People may return for mediocre food, but they will not come back for bad service. And service is very important to us. Both my children started serving in our family catering business when they were very young, the ages of 9 and 11. Also, I think about people that I've shared good food with, my church members at Faith Baptist Church in Pleasantville. They have some really good, amazing cooks there. And also, I think about my good friend Ann Edmonds. We shared a lot of good meals together. And I remember her. She helped us, in the purchasing of our home. So I just like to say her name. She passed away recently, but I always remember the good times that we had sharing food and just having good times. So food is the perfect gateway to a good time with food, folks, and fun.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your food with us today. Chef Michelle, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for being part of the New Jersey Folk Festival and Share Your Foodways with Middlesex Arts Institute.
And thank you, Dr. Kennedy, for coming down today.
Thank you so much.